But listen, I'm going to give you a quick list of all the things that often, and these are some of the biggest causes that often lead to suicide. Ready? You got to keep up with me, okay? Because I'm going to go kind of quick here. Depression. Depression is the biggest leading cause of suicide amongst people your age. Depression. Many people believe that if you do not treat your depression, that it has a very high risk of leading to suicide. Depression leads to suicide. Stress increases, right? You get too much homework, too much expectations for college. You got to start working. You got to start paying. You know, how do you deal with all your hormones that are going crazy? Just your stress just gets high, and you can become depressed. The second, and in our times, this is a big one, okay? Broken families. Often when people your age deal with divorce, they deal with the infidelity of a parent. When they deal with a brother or a sister destroying the family, that can lead to suicide. Often people commit suicide because they're trying to escape. They're trying to run away from something. There's something that they cannot bear, and they are trying to run away from something that is intolerable. Or people often commit suicide because they lose a loved one. A loss of a loved one can often lead people to committing suicide. My grandpa just passed away a few weeks ago. And when he passed away, I started thinking about all my uncles, because I have a lot of uncles that are not Christian, that drink and are in drugs. And a lot of them, to be honest with you, they were kind of bad sons and daughters, mainly bad sons. And one of my prayers was, God, would you please guard their heart and do not let the devil put any thoughts of suicide in their heart. Because when you lose a loved one, you know, death hits you so hard that you often say, well, the best thing I can do is just follow them. But we'll talk about that. The next one, another reason that can lead to suicide, another cause, is guilt. You know, you make mistakes. You do something, you say something, you participate in something, and it just shocks your life so much, and it fills you with guilt, and you can't get rid of guilt. Often people do it for attention. People who don't receive attention from their parents, from the opposite sex, from their friends, they do it to try to get people's attention. And they look at suicide, and it's true. I mean, when somebody commits suicide, it just changes your whole life. And you say, you know what, I got to take care of this person. I remember one time I got a call from a guy that we knew. Actually, the cops called me, and they said, do you know this person? And I said, yes. And he said, we need somebody to come and stay with him because he just attempted to commit suicide, and we can't leave him alone. He needs to be watched for hours. We can't leave him alone for the next few days. And the thing was that day, I was on my way out to Hugo's graduation. And I said, you know what? I got to help you find somebody else. I can't do it myself. I'm just a friend. I don't have a big relationship with him. So I directed him to the guy's family, and they took care of that. But people do it for attention. They also do it for manipulation, right? Where if you don't love me, I'm going to kill myself. If you don't give me this, I'm going to kill myself. If you don't take me there, I'm going to take my life. If you don't change, it's better that I die. People often do that. They do it for revenge, right? Somebody hurts them, somebody abuses them sexually, somebody just takes advantage of them, and often people, you know, they resort to suicide as a revenge. And amongst people your age, their impulses. I mean, just when you're young, you're full of impulses, and you don't really think things twice. You know, you just kind of just go with it. Just kind of do it. And, I mean, how many people don't you know that have died or committed suicide simply because they weren't very careful with their actions, what they were doing? And I actually think one of the saddest ones and ironic is that often people commit suicide, and they see it as an expression of love. Oh, she'll know once I'm gone. She says she doesn't love me, but once I'm gone, she'll realize how much she loves me. And I think that is so ironic. And you know what? Hollywood kind of paints suicide as this romantic thing. You know, you just, I mean, what better thing can you do than to just take your life? If I'm not going to have you, nobody's going to have you. And if I cannot belong to you, I refuse to belong. That's actually kind of dumb. That's dumb. Now, here's the second fact about suicide. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. People who commit suicide, They are trying to fix something. And when they can't fix it, they try to find an easy way out. And listen, they might be having problems with their parents, and they say, I've had enough. I can't take it. I'm going to take my life. I want you to know something. Your issues with your parents are temporary. And if you commit suicide, you're making a permanent decision for a temporary problem. I mean, when you have a headache, you don't go and just chop your brain off. When your finger hurts because you smashed it, you don't just go and cut it off. You know, when you get a scab or like a big cut on your leg, you don't, I don't want to deal with it, just cut it off. When you get a scar, you don't dispose of your body part. And suicide is a permanent solution for temporary problems. This is what I want you to know. This is what I want you to walk out of. The problems that often lead to suicide, I'm not saying they're easy. I'm not saying they're stupid. I'm not saying that they're childish. But this I do want you to know. Is there a bird in here? I think he's trying to commit suicide, so God brought him. But listen, this I do want you to know about your problems. They're temporary. They're temporary. And matter of fact, the Bible says, he says, listen, the afflictions and the problems and the issues and the struggles and all those things that really weigh on us, they're temporary. The Bible says that they're temporary. No problem lasts forever. They don't last forever. Problems are temporary. And suicide, and this is why it worries me, okay? This is why the Bible is against it. Because suicide is a permanent solution for a temporary problem. I mean, people commit suicide because the person they love doesn't love them. Hey, come on, how many women are not out there? I'm sure there's at least 10 that look like her. You know? So suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I want you to know something, okay? If you have ever contemplated suicide, or if you ever talked to someone who is considering suicide because their problems are too many, I want you to know something. If you commit suicide because of your problems, I want you to know that your problems will still remain after you're gone. Matter of fact, which is my third point, the truth about suicide. Suicide creates more problems than it actually solves. Suicide creates more problems than it actually solves. Okay? Just let me be kind of simple out here, okay? If you commit suicide, most of your parents are having a hard time with their finances. And if you pass away, you create more problems because, first of all, your parents have to deal with it emotionally. They have to deal with it financially. They have to deal with it, you know, in their relationships. And suicide always creates more problems than it actually solves. And I want you to know something. We're going to touch about it in just a minute. When you commit suicide, you have just exchanged your earthly problems for problems in eternity. Because as human beings, and this is what the Bible teaches, and I'm getting ready to jump into what the Bible says. The Bible teaches that we are eternal beings, okay? That means that, yes, you're going to die one day, but you're not going to cease to exist. I'm not saying that you're going to walk around like a ghost and be scaring people, but the Bible says that our life on earth is temporary. And our life in eternity, whether it is with God or away from God in hell, is our destiny, is our future. And when you commit suicide, you are just exchanging your earthly problems for other kind of problems. Okay? And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Listen to this. When a person commits suicide, it can be a very selfish act and very unthoughtful, designated only to gratify themselves and cause remorse for those around them. In those circumstances, a person does not consider God or his plan for their life. Suicide is a selfish act at its core. Suicide is a very selfish act. Because at that moment, your problems, your issues, your struggles, your emotions, your feelings, they matter more than whatever truth they may be, whatever other circumstances there may be, how it might affect others. And suicide is very selfish at its core. Now, what does the Bible say? And you're saying, Nestor, what's the whole deal with the Bible? I want you to know something off the bat. The word suicide does not appear in the Bible. You can look for it and it will not appear in the Bible. Okay? The word suicide is not in the Bible. So you're asking, so why are we talking about the Bible? If the Bible doesn't talk about suicide, if the Bible doesn't mention the suicide, then why are we going to talk about it? As a matter of fact, I want you to know, because I've asked people, and they think that thou shalt not commit suicide is one of the commandments. It is not one of the commandments, okay? If you think thou shalt not commit suicide is a commandment, you need to start joining a plug group where we're talking about the Bible. But listen, why are we talking about the Bible? In our plug groups, we started a series about the Bible, and we're learning about it. And as believers, and this is my personal belief, and this is our belief as a church, and this should be your belief. I hope it is your belief. And if it's not, then you need to have very good argument or very good reasons why it's not, okay? But we believe that the Bible is the ultimate authority. What does that mean? That means that if the Bible says something about a subject and I feel different about it, the Bible is right. That means that if science says something, but the Bible says something different, the Bible is right. Now, why do we believe that the Bible is the ultimate authority? 3 reasons. Number 1, because it's inspired by God. And we've been touching this in our plug groups. You should join one. The Bible is inspired by God. In other words, the Bible is God's letter to you. And we believe that God is perfect, God is all-knowing, God is all-powerful. So therefore, the Bible is inspired by God. Not only is it inspired by God, but the Bible is error-free. In other words, the Bible doesn't have mistakes. The Bible doesn't contradict itself. The Bible doesn't have any flaws. The Bible doesn't have any mistakes. The Bible is error-free. And because it's error-free, we can believe in it. And third, and also importantly, the Bible is the ultimate authority because the Bible is the truth. If it's inspired by God, if it doesn't have mistakes, then we believe that the Bible is the truth. Now in your days, there is no truth. You say, well, that's true for you, but that's not true for me, and everybody has different opinions. But when it comes to the core of the issue, we believe that what the Bible has to say is the truth because, first of all, it's inspired by God and it's error-free. So we're going to look at the Bible as our point of view, as our starting point for this subject of suicide. I want you to know that the Bible does not cover the issue. A lot of people think, well, just because the word suicide is not in the Bible is kind of trying to run away from it. It's trying to escape that issue. The Bible is not, okay? There's a lot of words that are not in the Bible, and it's simply because the words happen to be at a different time. The word dinosaur is not in the Bible, but we know dinosaurs exist. The word internet is not in the Bible. And to your surprise, the word Facebook is not in the Bible. But it exists, right? So, let's see what the Bible has to say. First of all, I want us to look at a few people who committed suicide in the Bible. But before we talk about 3 very known people in the Bible who committed suicide, I looked up online to see what were the most famous suicides in our times, like in society. Can anybody guess what is the number 1 most famous suicide? Close. Kurt Cobain is one of them. Can you guys show the picture of Kurt Cobain? It's the guy with the guitar. He's the second. Kurt Cobain is the second most famous suicide. Anybody know what the first one is? Heath Ledger? No. Marilyn Monroe is the third one. Anybody know who the first one? Let's show the picture of Marilyn Monroe. That's Marilyn Monroe if you don't know who she is. I decided to bring pictures because a lot of times, if you're like me, I'm not really good with names, and unless I see faces, I know who they are. So that's why I brought pictures. Anybody know who the first and fourth more famous suicides are? Michael Jackson. No, Michael Jackson is not. Kevin? Hitler. Hey, no. He knows because he's back there and he has the computer. That's not fair, cheater. That's not fair. Hitler is the number 1 most famous suicide. I'll give you a clue about the fourth one. He's an artist. Vincent Van Gogh. Yes, he's the fourth. He was a painter. Hitler died by a pistol. Kurt Cobain died by a shotgun. Marilyn Monroe took pills. And Vincent Van Gogh died by a gunshot too. Now, Osama bin Laden, no, he died by a Team CO6.